Some of the best episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender are the filler episodes. Yeah, I said it, I'll say it again. Given it came out in an era before streaming, before the current model of binge watching and full season drops, and before the cursed era of seasons only being 8 to 13 episodes. Oh my God, why do we want this? Avatar was designed from the ground up to tell its long-running story through largely self-contained episodes. This balance of episodic and long-running storytelling not only allowed the show a lot of freedom in the kinds of stories it wanted to tell, but to do so while also still working towards the characters' long-term goals. By being a globe-trotting adventure in which the Avatar must master all 4 elements, where our protagonists have to stop the Fire Nation from conquering the rest of the world, we are then given an incredibly generous formula where we can go almost anywhere in the world and still have our stories feel relevant. And because this show is able to remain episodic, you still get 22-minute tightly paced episodes that tell their own stories with satisfying conclusions. It's not just one story strung across 20 episodes. It is 20 individual stories, depending on how you want to count the two-parters, that all work together in harmony to tell one larger story. Pretty much any casual viewer can sit down, get what they need to know from Katara's opening monologue and the previously on segments, and then just enjoy the show, even if they've never seen an episode of Avatar before. And I think that's important to emphasize just how vital that is to Avatar's success. Its accessibility. Truth be told, it's hard to even define what a filler episode of Avatar looks like. Sure, you could say it's one that doesn't have them fighting Zuko or other Fire Nation soldiers, or that doesn't focus directly on Aang's training, but what about little character beats or character-driven stories? What about important aspects of world building? Should we even bother trying to decipher what is filler versus what is not? Because honestly, to call an episode of Avatar filler really is a misunderstanding of what these kinds of stories can do. Filler often gets a very bad rep since audiences have come to expect every episode to advance the plot directly in some way at any fucking cost. But filler episodes can provide much needed levity while also giving characters room to just exist. And that's important if you want your audience to get to know and love them. But for the sake of today's video, we're gonna just talk about some of my favorite quote-unquote filler episodes of Avatar, specifically Book 1. I was initially gonna cover the whole series in this video, but since I love myself, I'm gonna show myself a little mercy and keep myself as brief as I can, even though this bitch loves long form. I'm gonna keep my definition of filler loose, since honestly, I think it's a waste of time to even try getting into the nitty-gritty of what filler is. So instead, my general rule will be that if it's more focused on a specific story chained to a specific town or city that the gang is currently in, or if it's more character-focused, we're counting it as a filler episode, or a less plot episode. Girl, I don't know. Before we begin, ciao! My name's Thomas, aka the Unicorn of War, and I make videos, be they essays or reviews, about the media that I enjoy. From Avatar to Winx Club to eclectic series like Slayers, I try to dissect what I love about a piece of media and what I don't quite enjoy. I try to be more subjective than objective, exploring why media resonates with me in the way that it does, and using that to talk about my own relationship with it. And often when I do, it gives y'all something fun to listen to for hours at a time. You're welcome. If that sounds interesting to you, then be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications of new videos and community tab posts, because, and say it with me now, YouTube hates creators, and everything changed when YouTube attacked. Also, if you're willing and able, consider pledging your support for myself and the channel over on Patreon. Patrons get access to special perks and rewards, such as early access videos and scripts, access to the private Union of War Discord server, and Patreon exclusive content. Or if you want to give a donation but you don't want to become a patron, there's a little thanks button down below that you can use. There you go, it's like a little tip jar. Now without further ado, let the chaos commence. As the first proper stop on the gang's road trip to the North Pole, this episode establishes the formula we can come to expect from this season. They arrive in an Earth Kingdom town, they get to know the locals, uncover some conflict, usually with the Fire Nation or crazy old men, and then save the day before heading out to their next destination. Perfect for lighthearted shenanigans with our main trio, along with Appa and Momo, as our constant anchors to interact with a revolving door of supporting characters. Fun fact, I love these fan-made maps of the gang's journeys across the series, and as you can see, they're constantly heading north during Book 1, mostly sticking to the western coasts of the Earth Kingdom, proof they are indeed working towards their eventual goal of reaching the Northern Water Tribe every episode. Weirdly, except for the Great Divide. Actually, I'm introducing a friend to Avatar for the first time. We're in Book 3 now, but I warned her about the Great Divide because, everyone hated it. It had been a while since I'd seen it. She actually really liked it. And weirdly, I did too. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I think we're just really picky because the show spoils us. Anyhow, these first 3 episodes following the Southern Air Temple slowly acquaint us with the Earth Kingdom. First with Kyoshi Island, which is attached to a previous avatar and is full of non-benders, then Omashu to introduce us to earthbending, and then to Haru's village, so we can see what happens to an Earth Kingdom village when it's conquered by the Fire Nation. They're all great, but I think the Warriors of Kyoshi is my personal favorite for how laid back it feels compared to the others. Which makes sense, given it's the first of the bunch and has to lighten our spirits after Aang learning about the fate of his people last episode. Oh my god. This is why tone matters, children. Kyoshi Island is dedicated to the eponymous Earth Avatar, a previous incarnation before Roku. We don't learn much about Kyoshi herself, and won't until another filler episode next season, but it's less about her and more about making this feel like a welcoming place for Aang and the others to vibe for a minute. Aang's entire reason for coming here was to ride the elephant koi, not only establishing the fantastical nature of this world and giving us a bit of childish fun, but also because Aang wants to show off to Katara.
Katara, check out this airbending trick. That's great, Aang. You didn't even look.
This entire episode explores his need for her attention, while also exploring his pendulum swift in how he approaches being the Avatar.
It's nice to see you excited about being the Avatar.
Since this place is named for Kyoshi, the villagers take to Aang quite quickly, especially the kids. Before, Aang was running away from his duties as the Avatar, but now he's using this as a means of getting validation while trying to make Katara jealous.
You just don't want to come because you're jealous.
Jealous? Of what?
Jealous that we're having so much fun without you.
That's ridiculous.
It's an interesting shift, given both of them involve him somehow shirking his responsibilities for his own desires. I felt like in that take I sounded kind of like the Lorax. I'm keeping that. Also, I just really appreciate the fact that reincarnation transcends gender. Aang was a woman and has been men, women, and those who lieth betwixt across the eons, and everyone is chill about it. And I love that.
There she is, girls. Me in a past life. Ooh. You were pretty.
The Kyoshi Warriors too challenge Sokka's preconceptions about women and his frankly sexist attitudes grown from the Water Tribe's own societal views. The Northern Water Tribe is arguably far more misogynistic and patriarchal, refusing to let women use their waterbending for combat, but the Southern Tribe definitely is not free of this.
Girls are better at fixing pants than guys, and guys are better at hunting and fighting and stuff like that. It's just the natural order of things.
All done with your pants? And look what a great job I did.
Sokka had to learn these comments from somewhere, but the narrative consistently shuts down Sokka's sexism, with Katara and later Suki proving him wrong every time he makes an ass of himself.
Anything else you want to teach us?
Sokka is allowed to have a massive flaw in his sexism, without the narrative endorsing or just permitting that sexism. Instead, the narrative challenges him, forcing him to reflect and grow as a person. He apologizes to Suki on his hands and knees, dons the Kyoshi warrior uniform, and learns directly from her.
I would be honored if you would teach me.
Even if I'm a girl?
I'm sorry if I insulted you earlier. I was wrong.
Now this is some positive masculinity, and Sokka is our king. And it does all of this too while embracing the femininity of the Kyoshi warriors, how they use their enemy's strength against them, and Suki's final comment about being both a warrior and a girl.
I treated you like a girl when I should have treated you like a warrior.
I am a warrior. But I'm a girl, too.
You can be both, damn it. Once again, this is the kind of story we desperately need in the 2020s, both adults and kids, oh my god. Katara is a messy queen, and I love her. While she is kind, compassionate, and maternal, she is also passionate, self-righteous, and very, very prone to anger. If you cross her line, it's on sight. She'll slit your throat with a water whip, and it'll be over for you. It's nice to have a leading female character be allowed to indulge in these aspects that female characters often aren't, given women in general are given way more flack for flaws that men get a pass on. While pursuing a pirate ship's goods, Katara comes across an authentic waterbending scroll, presumably stolen from a waterbender.
Let's just say I got it up north at a most reasonable price. Free.
She in turn steals the scroll, much to Sokka's annoyance after they escape the pirates. Personally, I'm on Katara's side. Not only is this in the name of both Aang and Katara learning waterbending as soon as they can, but she's right on the pirates having stolen it in the first place.
Sokka, where do you think they got it? They stole it from a waterbender.
Still, the narrative does acknowledge that Katara had a selfish motivation for this, mostly through Sokka.
What's so funny?
I'm sorry, but you deserve that. You've been duped. She's only interested in teaching herself.
When Aang takes quickly to waterbending and starts giving Katara tips, Katara blows up at him, making him cry, and making me feel like I need to leave the room immediately.
The key to bending is...
Will you please shut your air hole? Believe it or not, your infinite wisdom gets a little old sometimes. Why don't we just throw the scroll away since you're so naturally gifted?
She apologizes, but I absolutely love the fact that Katara was allowed a moment to blow up like this. Because of course she would. Waterbending is an incredibly important thing to her, given it's an important part of her culture, and she's the last waterbender of the southern tribe. Doesn't excuse her acting this way towards Aang at all, but it makes her incredibly compelling, especially when she sneaks out at night to practice alone, resulting in her being captured by Zuko and the pirates, using her flaws to further the plot. Hell yeah. Ultimately, it all culminates in Aang and Katara using their newfound waterbending skills together to save themselves, which feels like a very nice resolution after the earlier conflict. It gives Katara more complexity than just being the mom of the group. TLDR, I support women's wrongs. This episode often gets overlooked as quite basic. You know, don't believe in superstition and tall tales. But personally, I think it goes a bit deeper than that, and it's more mature than it's given credit for. And naturally, I'm a big fan. To me, this is an episode about how people often over-rely on external sources, which they expect to make the big choices in their lives for them. And in turn, it's about how people can take fate into their own hands. Katara is easily an example of the former. She keeps going back to Aunt Wu for fortunes, whether it be about the man she's gonna marry or whether she should eat a mango or a papaya, even though she hates papaya.
Should I eat a mango or a papaya for breakfast tomorrow? Papaya. Oh, I hate papaya.
Even when she already knows her own answer, she thinks Aunt Wu would know better. Even Aunt Wu is completely over her over-reliance. Oh my god.
Oh wait, one more thing. How warmly should I dress tomorrow?
You want me to do a reading for that?
Sokka, meanwhile, is the voice of logic and reason and the resident skeptic. He doesn't believe in magic or superstitions.
I can't believe you would trust your lives to that crazy old woman's superstition.
He even dismisses Katara's waterbending early on, referring to it as magic, something far-fetched, impractical, and even unreal. While his constant frustration with the townspeople's blind faith in Aunt Wu's fortunes is definitely relatable,
Can your science explain why it rains?
Yes! Yes, it can!
to me, it feels like the real problem is less the fortunes and the guidance, and more that these people take that guidance as dictation. That kind of gets proven when the gang saves the town from the volcano. Yes, Aunt Wu's prediction of the town's safety was technically accurate, but only because Aang and the others convinced them to step up and protect themselves, initiated by them literally changing the clouds that Aunt Wu reads from with their waterbending.
Just as you reshape those clouds, you have the power to shape your own destiny.
They literally took fate into their own hands. Their waterbending hands, yeah. And this is something Aunt Wu commends. A superficial reading would dismiss her as just a grifter or some old weirdo, one of those fake psychics who just take advantage of gullible, grieving people through methods like cold reading or generic guesses. But Aunt Wu doesn't do this. She doesn't even charge her patrons, leading me to believe she's quite earnest in her practices.
And after all the business I've given her?
But she doesn't even charge.
I know, but still.
And after all, we have seen that the supernatural does in fact exist in the Avatar world, so why would fortunes be far-fetched? Really, I think this episode is about finding your own way to go about life. If you think fortunes are stupid as shit, okay. If you like the guidance that they bring you, then no harm, no foul. What matters is that you are making these decisions, that you're not just following the words of another person blindly, lest you find yourself going to bed in a lake of lava. Also, I'm a big fan of Aang's being super nonchalant when Aunt Wu is terrified by the chicken bones foretelling his destiny.
A battle whose outcome will determine the fate of the whole world.
Yeah, I knew that already. But did it say anything about a girl?
Like, yeah, I know I'm the Avatar who's gonna have to save the world. I knew that already. Now get on to the pretty girl I like, please. Given the role of the Fire Nation as the series' antagonists, it would have been easy for the show to portray fire as an inherently evil element. However, the show was quick to debunk that from the jump, even with Aang's initial disbelief in the war. He's had friends in the Fire Nation after all, like Kuzan. This episode really digs into that preconception. Aang tries to skip 2 elements ahead to learn firebending from Zhang, against Zhang's wishes. Aang is impatient, wanting to not just skip over water and earth.
Before learning firebending, you must learn water and earth. Water is cool and soothing, earth is steady and stable.
But also to skip to throwing fireballs instead of learning about fire as an element. Mastering an element is more than just bending it for fighting. You have to learn the philosophy behind it and work through your connection to it given your current outlook on life. It's why he struggles so much with earthbending at first. Aang doesn't understand that, which is why he underestimates the control that fire demands.
Fire is alive. It breathes, it grows. Without the bender, a rock will not throw itself. But fire will spread and destroy everything in its path.
Inadvertently burning Katara. This is a moment that haunts Aang for the rest of the series. He doesn't even want to learn firebending after this, afraid he'll hurt Katara or someone else again. Another example of characters being allowed to make horrible, hurtful mistakes and then grow from them. Oh, and it lets Katara discover her healing abilities, so whoops, I guess this is more than just a filler episode, isn't it? In any case, Aang's newfound fear parallels Zhang's self-hatred, given he's seen the barbarism and cruelty propagated by the Fire Nation by fighting in their army during the war.
He was only concerned with the power of fire, how he could use it to destroy his opponents and wipe out the obstacles in his path.
He's come to see fire as an inherently evil, destructive element, envying Katara's waterbending, which he views as inherently good and healing.
Water brings healing and life, but fire brings only destruction and pain. It forces those of us burdened with its care to walk a razor's edge between humanity and savagery.
If only he could see the way Hama would show the dark side of waterbending later. And really, that's it. Every element has good and bad to it, and is capable of good and evil. The Fire Nation's brand of firebending is a corrupted, bastardized version of the true firebending given to them by the dragons, whom they hunted to the point of near extinction. Ungrateful much. Fire as an element is about life, passion, and energy, but all the current Empire cares about is using it for cutting down their enemies. Anything else should be burned away. In the end, Aang isn't ready to use firebending to defeat Zhao. Instead, he uses his wit, turning Zhao's fury-fueled firebending against him to destroy his own ships. It shows Zhao's folly in fueling his bending through his anger and cruelty.
You haven't thrown a single blow.
No, but you have. Zhang said you had no restraint.
Using him as a proxy for the current state of the Fire Nation. This would also come in handy when Aang and Zuko would discover the true nature of firebending in Book 3. As the last pit stop on the gang's journey to the Northern Water Tribe, this episode mirrors the Southern Air Temple episode. Whereas that episode had a quiet, abandoned temple for Aang to discover what happened to his people, this one shows a temple that has been inhabited by new residents, interrogating how we should preserve the past while empathizing with people in need of trying to establish a safe present. At least it tries to. It kind of fumbles the bag, a little bit. The temple has been inhabited by the Mechanist and his people, who lost their homes to the Fire Nation.
My people became refugees after a terrible flood. My infant son, Teo, was badly hurt and lost his mother. I needed somewhere to rebuild, and I stumbled across this place.
They found refuge here, the Mechanist using his skills to convert the temple to suit their needs, and even creating devices that mimic the gliders of the air nomads who once lived here. The Mechanist actually takes many notes from the way that the air nomads did things for his devices.
I came across these fan-like contraptions.
Our gliders.
Yes, little light flying machines. They gave me an idea.
However, while these people have found a home here, it hasn't been without disruption. Much of the original architecture is now covered in industrial pipes and contraptions. We even meet the Mechanist as he's destroying part of an area full of air nomad statues to install a bathroom.
Look out! What the doodle? Don't you know enough to stay away from construction sites? We have to make room for the bathhouse.
Oh, okay. That made it sound as though I think the bathroom is the bad part. It's not. It's not. Unicorn of War exposed for being anti-bathroom. Aang is understandably upset. With the air nomads gone, these temples are the last relics of their culture. And seeing one be so thoroughly changed and even desecrated, it makes perfect sense that Aang would take this as a deep insult.
This is a sacred temple. You can't treat it this way. I've seen it when the monks were here. I know what it's supposed to be like.
And then you have the Mechanist being blackmailed into building war machines for the Fire Nation. Yes, he is helping the very people who hurt both his people and the air nomads, but he also did so under direct threat, and when presented with a means of fighting back through the gang, helps them in driving back the Fire Nation. There is absolutely a discussion to be had here about whether the Mechanist people had to so thoroughly alter the temple in order to make this place their home, how they could have respected the relics of a destroyed people's culture. But I do ultimately appreciate Aang's takeaway with the metaphor of the hermit crab.
It's like the hermit crab. Maybe you weren't born here, but you found this empty shell and made it your home. And now you protect each other.
These people made this empty shell their home, and hopefully now will be more kind towards its past. Well, at least until the Legend of Korra, when it seems that they've decided to move house. And it's probably a good thing that they did, considering what Ghazan was about to do to it. Northern Air Temple just cannot catch a goddamn break. From the chat for the North. I do wish the episode acknowledged Aang's feelings being justified, though. I think in trying to get us on board with the Mechanist people living here, we are also asked to dismiss a lot of the genuine destruction of the culture of this temple. Aang has to compromise in finding peace in these people living here, but the Mechanist and his people are not asked to reach their own compromise of respecting the culture and history of the temple while adapting it to suit their needs. I think that little shift would have done a lot in making this episode feel less one-sided, all progress is good progress.
Progress has a way of getting away from us.
Oh, side note, absolutely love Sokka's nerd engineering side getting to come out here. His unexpected friendship with the Mechanist genuinely gives me life, especially when they wind up inventing the hot air balloon. Too bad the Fire Nation decided to ruin that one too. God damn it. So, there you go. My favorite filler episodes from Avatar Book 1. I'll be doing the same for the other seasons as well, but I think these ones are interesting given Book 1 is all about introducing you to these characters and this world. That inadvertently provides a lot of freedom as the show experiments with the kind of stories that it wants to tell while finding its feet. And in the process, sure, maybe you get some episodes that you're not as fond of or that you consider duds, but you also get some really interesting ones with surprisingly deep insights. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this from me, then be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications because YouTube hates creators. Also, please consider pledging your support for myself and the channel over on Patreon, or giving a tip through the thanks button below. I'm the Unicorn of War, and honestly, even though it didn't make the list, The Great Divide is not the shit show some of y'all think it is. I'm just saying.